If your life feels smaller than it was meant to be, it is not because you are incapable. It is because fear has stolen your permission to act. There was a time you believed more, reached further, spoke louder, but over time, through ridicule, routine, and rejection, you started to shrink. You chose silence over expression, delay over decision, safety over destiny. But deep in your mind, something remained, a voice that said you were made for more. This is that voice grown louder, and in the next hour it will not whisper, it will roar. It will remind you of what you already knew before the world taught you to fear yourself. This is not a motivational message. It is a restoration. It is the return of your will, your clarity, your command. Fear has stolen too much. Years, dreams, power, but no more. If you truly listen, not casually, not while distracted, but with every nerve focused, every breath sharpened, then this speech will reinstall the identity that fear buried. The man you almost became will become inevitable, but only if you commit to every word. Drift for one moment and fear will win again. But stay fully, and the next hour will not be just a turning point. It will be a rebirth. Now silence the noise and lean in, because you were meant for way more. And starting now, you remember, there is no louder thief in a man's life than fear, but it does not break in with force. It enters with silence. It does not shout, but whispers. It convinces the man to wait, to calculate, to choose later over now, safety over daring, doubt over decision, and by the time that man realizes something has been taken, it is already too late. Years have passed, the fire has cooled, the aim has drifted, and though his body is still young, his courage has withered like a leaf ignored by the sun. The greatest losses in life are not caused by opposition, but by the man himself when he begins to accept the language of limitation. Fear does not need to kill your dream. It only needs to persuade you to delay it. The man who says not yet today will say maybe someday tomorrow. And the man who says maybe someday tomorrow will one day look back and call his entire life almost. I have sat with powerful men whose names built industries, whose minds turned dust into empires. But I have also sat with those who could have done the same and didn't. Not because they lacked knowledge, not because they lacked opportunity, but because they allowed fear to disguise itself as caution, realism, and responsibility. These are not virtues. They are polished chains. When Henry Ford envisioned the automobile, he did not walk among cheerleaders. He walked among critics. Wagons, they said, are more practical. Horse-drawn, they insisted, is the way of the future. They laughed at the absurdity of a machine on wheels. And yet, while they laughed, he built. While they warned him, he worked. And when the world resisted, he persisted. Had Ford waited for applause before acting, the road would still belong to horses. But he knew, the world does not reward the man who waits. It follows the one who walks. This is the great law. Fear only wins if you hesitate. If you move, it falls behind. If you wait, it sharpens its claws. It feeds on inaction. The longer you pause, the louder it speaks. You think fear needs to overpower you. It doesn't. It just needs you to slow down, to stall, to question yourself, to reach for another book before you begin, to say, I'm not ready one more time. And then it builds its home inside your voice, inside your decisions, inside your very identity. Let me speak plainly. You are not tired. You are not confused. You are not unprepared. You are haunted by the belief that staying small keeps you safe. But what has that safety brought you? What fruit has come from doubt? What fortune has been built by delay? Every time you hesitate at the edge of purpose, fear wins another round, and you lose another year. A man must learn to see fear not as a stop sign, but as a signal that something sacred is near. The presence of fear often confirms that you are close to your greatest growth, but only if you step through it. Most men do not fail because they were wrong. They fail because they never even began. They let fear steal the first step. And once that first step is gone, the path begins to vanish. I say to you now, act while afraid. Speak while your voice shakes. Build while your hands tremble, because the man who moves through fear becomes the man who commands it. You do not eliminate fear by waiting for its permission. You eliminate it by ignoring its voice and walking anyway. The subconscious does not respond to excuses. It obeys action. And if you hesitate, your mind will obey hesitation. Let us not pretend this is new knowledge. You've felt it already, in your chest, in your gut, in the back of your mind where your future speaks in quiet rebellion. It has whispered to you every day, you were meant for more. Not louder, just clearer. But fear is louder, and you've obeyed the voice that shouted instead of the one that knew. Today, that ends. Repeat after me, not with passivity, but with decision. I am the type of man who no longer pauses at the edge of purpose. Fear does not counsel me, it flees me. I am not cautious, I am called. Let these not be mere words, but commands. The man who walks with a definite purpose, who acts as if the outcome is already his, is a man whom fear can no longer follow. And that man is now. The downfall of most men is not a sudden blow. It is a slow fade, a slipping into softness, a quiet surrender to routine and false comfort. They do not fall by force, they fall by drift. This is the devil's most effective weapon, not fury, but familiarity. Not crisis, but comfort. It is not failure that takes them. It is delay, repetition, and the illusion that another day, another month, another year will bring clarity, when in truth it only brings decay. Outwitting the devil revealed this in its most chilling clarity. The adversary of progress does not need to crush your goals. It only needs to make you postpone them. I'll wait until the timing is right. I'm not sure yet. I'm still preparing. These are not plans. These are eulogies read slowly across decades. And the man who speaks them has already died. He simply hasn't been buried yet. Fear breeds drift in its most deceptive form. It does not show up with horns and fury. It wears a suit and carries a calendar. It tells you to pause, to be smart, to wait for the right moment. But the right moment never comes to the man who does not decide. It arrives only for the one who demands it. Edison did not become a monument to invention by hoping ideas would visit him. He commanded them. He obsessed over his purpose to the point that doubt could no longer speak. While others slept in the rhythm of routine, Edison burned midnight oil, not to impress, but to progress. Drift is the enemy because it disguises itself as wisdom. The drifter often appears productive. He reads, studies, prepares, but he never commits. He is the man who builds blueprints but never lays a brick. He dreams, yes, but dreams in the daylight, never daring to labor in the night. And make no mistake, he may speak like a visionary, but he walks like a ghost. Each day you fail to rule is a day surrendered to the rhythm of fear. The subconscious, if left without command, will default to the loudest voice. And that voice, unchecked, is almost always doubt. Without repetition of purpose, the mind will replay what it has heard from others. Be realistic. Don't get your hopes up. What if you fail? But when you command it, when you speak into it daily, deliberately, forcefully, you drown out every voice but your own. You must become the architect of your rhythm. Rise with a vow. Speak your identity aloud. Move before you feel ready. These are not motivational gestures. They are spiritual declarations. If you do not anchor yourself to purpose each day, you will drift into the tides of fear, and those tides do not lift. They pull you under slowly until you mistake motion for direction and breath for life. Let me be clear, no man drifts toward greatness. No empire was ever stumbled into. It is forged by men who interrupt the rhythm, who build new patterns of thought, who speak and act with the intensity of one who knows that death comes not at the end of life, but at the end of purpose. Every man must make this choice daily. Will I drift or will I dominate? Will I wait or will I walk? Do not confuse survival with success. The man who drifts may breathe, but he does not live. Now take these words and do not whisper them. Declare them. Speak them as if your future hangs in the balance, because it does. I am the type of man who interrupts the drift. I destroy delay before it begins. My days do not repeat, they ascend. I lead my thoughts, they do not lead me. Like I do not drift, I decide. These affirmations are not poetry, they are programming. They are bricks laid each morning, each night, in the foundation of a mind that refuses to sleep while destiny waits. Speak them until they are no longer statements but habits. And once they are habits, you will discover what few men ever do. That drift was never your default, it was your neglect. And now the drift ends. Before the world told you what was impossible, before you were warned to be realistic, and before fear was painted as wisdom, you dreamed. Not as an exercise, but as a natural expression of who you were. You saw yourself building, leading, creating. You saw the stage, the mountain, the empire. You saw yourself great. And let this be understood clearly now. That vision was not a mistake, nor a child's wandering mind. It was a blueprint, divine, unmistakable, and designed for you and you alone. Great men do not dream because they are bored. They dream because they are called. And in your earliest years, before the world instructed you to shrink, you were still close enough to the divine to hear that call clearly. The boy who saw more, who reached without apology, who imagined a destiny far greater than his surroundings. That boy was not foolish. He was faithful. Fear entered not when you failed, but when someone told you to be careful, when someone said, be realistic, and you listened. That is when the corrosion began, a corrosion of spirit, a blurring of the inner eye. The voice of authority declared the path to greatness too risky, too far, or not for people like us. And slowly, the divine blueprint was buried under adult fears, social programming, and the cautious tones of those who had long abandoned their own potential. Let us consider Andrew Carnegie, not as a tycoon, but as a boy. A boy who arrived in America poor, unknown, unconnected. Yet within him, from the earliest age, burned the image of wealth, not for its own sake, but for what it could build, influence, and create. He never surrendered that vision. He held it closer than certainty. And that image, protected, repeated, obeyed, became the very fuel that carried him beyond the wildest expectations of the world around him. Not once did he allow the common sense of others to rewrite the dreams of his boyhood. Because he knew what is planted early is planted by something greater than circumstance. The tragedy of modern men is not that they dream too big, but that they abandon the dream too soon. They permit the grind of daily life to file down the edges of vision until only a dull shape remains, unrecognizable, unlived. The man who once saw himself commanding, building, leading, now whispers apologies for wanting more. Not because he lacks ability, but because he forgot what he once knew as a child. I say to you now, return to that boy. Sit with him. Listen to what he once saw without fear. You may be surprised to discover that the vision still lives, even buried beneath years of neglect. For the subconscious never forgets, it only waits. It waits for your command, your declaration, your return to belief. And when you return, it will rise with fire. You must stop treating your childhood dreams as fiction. Begin to treat them as instruction, as if your Creator whispered a glimpse of what was meant for you before you were old enough to argue. And that image, if held and honored, has the power to rebuild a life of purpose, direction, and daily fire.